Welcome to Heidi Relationships. Today, we'll read some more stories from Reddit. But before we start, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. That would help the channel a lot. Thank you very much in advance.
The first one is titled, Update 4, 3-month progression update to the My 44 meters wife, 41F, was recently contacted by her ex-boyfriend, co-writer, 36 meters, and I've grown a bit nervous story. This will be long, so as an update I've mostly gone no contact with my soon-to-be ex. I tried just communicating with her through my lawyer if we had a real reason to talk, but that made me feel like a child that was avoiding confrontation, even if that wasn't the case, and I decided to speak with her myself a few times. If you've been following the lengthy comment streams from my previous posts, you already know what was discussed, but I'll write everything here as if it's the first time I'm doing it. The soon-to-be ex at first was all over the place with how she talked about Chris. One minute he was her soulmate and the one that got away, the next he was a predator that would not leave her alone. Our family and friends have all heard the truth by now, and most of them have taken my side on the matter. Given the details I provided in my lengthy FB post, there was little room to side with her anyhow. She's since moved into her parents for the time being, and I remained in my home. It was acquired many years before I even met her, so that's not even an issue divorce-wise. Strangely enough, Chris, the AP, decided to write me this huge hurricane of a letter, for what reason God only knows. I got the impression from it that she must have dumped him in anger shortly after I gave her the boot, because it's laden with stuff like, "We were repairing our relationship when you stole her from me. I've loved her for X number of years, so don't post stuff online about how I'm a cheat." It really made me see red, and I wanted to do the man some serious physical harm, but once again I saw reason. Life has been pretty lonely in this house since she and my stepdaughter moved. The stepdaughter's room is still empty, and I have to leave the door closed because seeing it empty always hurts me, and I can't bring myself to do anything with it yet. She has a father, and he's a good dad, and because of him I still see her once during the week. I take her for bike rides, or we go grab something to eat together. I asked her once if she felt comfortable eating at my house, and the poor thing just started crying. She loves her grandparents but doesn't like living with them, so she's been spending more time with her father. Her old man has invited me over a couple times for a beer. We had a few conversations about our mutual ex and Chris. I think I mentioned in the comments on my last post, but he knew the entire time she was cheating on him. I see my son and my ex-wife a lot more now. One of my weekdays lines up with their schedule, so I'll stop in for dinner, and I've been keeping him an extra day for my weekends, and she will generally join us for dinner on Friday night. I've asked my son if he wants to talk about how he feels concerning my upcoming divorce, and he's not saying it so much, but he's hurting. The first couple of times he just got this far off stare and was like, "I don't want to even think about her." And that he loved her and didn't expect her of all people to do this to him. And it really hit me when he said that. We always think about how someone's affair does to us, like it's an act of malice against us, but what she did to me, coming from him, hurt more than anything she could have ever done to me. I've discussed therapy with he and his mom, but he insists he's alright, and if he feels he can't handle it he'll talk to us. He's a mature kid and I trust his judgment, usually pretty upfront with how he's doing. He and I actually for the first time in private discussed the divorce between his mother and I and the reasons behind it. I really didn't want to at first, as he is currently raging about adultery, and he has a great relationship with his mom. But he was asking about it, so I opted for polite honesty. I told him his mother hurt me just as much, but what she did was just a very poor choice, and that I'm not upset about it anymore, but it took a while. Speaking of my ex-wife, she's had my back through much of this. She's pretty much the reason I started having dinner with them one night during the week and keeping my son longer, because she insists, I'll do better to not be constantly alone in that house. A lot of people have suggested that she and I reunite. If I was to ever come to that decision, I would want to wait to be done with some therapy sessions, perhaps couples therapy if she was anywhere in this ballpark. We did briefly discuss our own divorce and the infidelity that led to it. I've moved past it and don't feel too fazed by it anymore, but she talks about it like she just got caught. It's not the first time I've done so, but I told her that I forgive her for it. I even added this time that giving more consideration to how she described the encounter, it's likely she was preyed on by some creep because she had too much to drink. This wasn't a guy she knew very well and had only seen around her place of work a few times as, if I'm remembering this right, either didn't work in her area or worked at a separate location. In either case, she has literally not seen him since like a few days after it happened. It's a little tough thinking about that too, because even though it doesn't bother me on a regular basis anymore, the fact of the matter is I was really loving my life up until she broke the bad news to me. The soon-to-be ex kind of smoothed things over for me when that relationship started, but once again, right as I'm feeling my life is great and I'm happy, infidelity messes that up for me. Kind of makes me really unwilling to even consider another relationship if this is what all my time and effort leads to. All that said, I'm taking a trip to Disney World this July to try and wash my mind of all this. Originally it was supposed to be me, the ex-wife, and my son, but I've managed to talk the soon-to-be ex into allowing my stepdaughter to come along so she won't feel excluded. She'll probably just use the time to bang her next unfortunate soul, but that's not my problem anymore. A user in the comments said, "Bravo on handling such a painful journey with poise. I'm proud of you, honestly. There were a few moments where I thought you were showing weakness, but I realize it was wisdom, and likely forgiveness. I feel like if your soon-to-be ex fessed up at the confrontation, this would be a different post, and really, I wouldn't judge you for it. But she showed she wasn't remorseful, just guilty when she chose to keep lying when you very obviously knew. I'm glad for you having your son and your XW. It seemed she might have grown from the separating and learned what she lost in her choices. Hopefully her presence is more about being supportive and caring for your mutual son instead of getting in your good graces. I'm almost certain she's misses you and what you represented, but don't let people lull you into some fairy tale reunion with her. Take your time and as much of it as you need if you're considering her again." Another user said, "Man, just stay friends with your first ex. Stop wondering if she is in love with you. You're hurting yourself with the what if. Remember, she is your ex for a reason. Even if she came clean for that one, you chose to divorce her. Even if she is harboring hopes of you having something more than a co-parent relationship, you aren't ready for anything. Just keep things as it is. I would talk to her and express this thing after you feel ready. But remember, most times a relationship with an ex who cheated don't work. So please just work on yourself and go to IC. And I would suggest keep your distance from your ex at least from now." The next one is titled, Update 5, Should Be Divorced by July and I Cannot Wait. In short, out of the blue one day my wife of 5 years claimed an ex-boyfriend she used to write with suddenly appeared again, wanting to know if she could work on an old mutual project together. Well, as you might have guessed, she was having an affair that went back for quite a long time. Their dirty emails to each other disgusted me as they were extremely, almost intentionally hurtful. It wasn't bad enough for her to cheat on me, but he said he wanted her to go home and greet me filled with him, so to speak. I held my shit together for the kids for Christmas. She has a daughter and I have a son. I confronted her, threw her out, and went as no contact as I possibly could. Her AP, Chris, sent me a few messages after the fact claiming that I have no reason to be upset because in his eyes I stole her from him, and he'd been holding this one-sided grudge for the last 5 years and talked as if we had been enemies for quite some time. In short, my soon-to-be ex's family never approved of him, so she dumped him. She went on to claim they were soulmates, and that's why she couldn't turn him away. Well, I've been keeping my health, working out, continuing to work from home, but that'll be over soon. I've kept contact with my stepdaughter through her grandparents and her biological father, whom she also cheated on with this man, though he's cheated on my soon-to-be ex multiple times. He's an alright guy to have a beer with, and for all his faults he seems like a good dad. I see her twice a week now, never overnight, and even still I've kept her former room empty because it's too depressing to me to consider doing anything else with it. She's been my princess, and she's always excited when she comes to visit, or I show up to take her to dinner or for bike rides. After a bit, my son has decided that he thinks he could benefit from therapy and has been seeing a doctor. His mother, my first wife, and I have been keeping a close eye on him as he was pretty close to his stepmother. She's tried to contact him and apologize, but he doesn't want to speak to her. He began getting impulsive and had bouts of angry outbursts unrelated to her, and it was then I asked him if he thought he might do well with therapy. He told me how betrayed he felt by what she'd done, that he hated her, he missed his stepsister, and he wanted everything to just be erased, and I really felt for him. I don't think we've talked heart to heart or hugged one another in our entire lives more than we have in the past few months. His mother has really been at my side through most of this, and we've gotten a lot closer too. At first, she was inviting me over for dinner a couple days a week because she thought it was unhealthy for me to spend so much time alone in an empty house. I'm around steadily more now, and many nights a week we eat dinner like a family. My folks and her folks have both taken notice of this and have both been asking us whether or not, seeing as things are getting on so well, if we'd consider reconciling. We said we're both happy with things as they are, but knowing everyone is talking about us makes it difficult for us not to talk about it ourselves. Minus the physical affection, we're basically acting really similar toward one another like we did when we were married, which is comforting and warm, but that's soon going to get to a place where it needs a good long talk about. All that's been said thus far is nothing is going to be attempted or even discussed until our son's life has normalized. These changes hurt him. As for my soon-to-be ex and how things are going on that front, from what I've learned, she's just bought herself a condo and moving on with her life. Her mother and father are deeply ashamed of what she's done, and in their words, my stepdaughter is frequently backtalking her mom. I'd like to report to you all that she's gravely suffering or is a weeping mess, but nope. Soon-to-be ex seems like she's off to go ruin another guy's life. I did, however, cross paths with Chris at a grocery store last month. He turned pale white and I pointed him out to my brother, which I shouldn't have done. He started following him around and shouting variations of "fucking Prince Charming over here. Fat loser's gonna eat both those Red Barons tonight before he starts texting your wife, guys." I forced us to leave and will be shopping elsewhere, though I did get a good laugh out of it. The next one is titled, "I found out at 2 a.m. New Year's Day that my wife was having an affair. She kept going for another 8 months. I'm 28. I had my first GF when I was 21. She was the first person I slept with too. I loved her. We got engaged and married and moved in together over a 6.5-year relationship. I started getting suspicious of her and one of her workmates who was extremely clingy towards her. There were many red flags, which I ignored as this woman was the love of my life and my wife. Why would she do anything so bad? But the suspicions kept building as more and more red flags appeared. I confronted her about these things, like him and her messaging constantly. I saw many messages from him to her with rows of heart emojis. How she would always favor going places with him over me, even when I specifically asked if we, me and her, could go together. She took him to a bird park that I loved to go to. She had him over for one night when I was away, and the bed sheets were in the washing machine when I got home. I had enough on New Year's when she was purposefully being distant from me, like I was a bad guy or I had done something wrong. I took her phone and found her messages with him, that night, confessing to each other how much they loved each other. Obviously I felt destroyed, but fool me attempted to keep our relationship going. I found they had been sexting each other a few weeks afterwards as well, and after a massive argument she promised to change. Fool me. They continued their thing until August, where I found them out again. Before then there had been instances where she was purposefully distant to me, and lo and behold, it was because she was doing things with him. Suspicion crept up again as she went to the gym 3 to 4 times a week, but only had one gym wear in the wash by the end of it, and she never was tired or did her fitness change. I demanded a divorce when I found out that she had named a star after him for his birthday, which was just a week or so before mine. As I had enough. She lied to friends and family about what had happened, stating that we were just getting distant and wanted different things. I retaliate with throwing everything on a FB post, including her confessions for the other guy, the naming the star purchase, photos of them out on trips which I had no clue of. I will admit, not my best moment, probably not fair either. After the divorce, I said I never wanted to hear or speak to her again. This was around 2 years ago, from time of posting, and in that time she has messaged me twice, both times I have completely ignored. But I keep the evidence of what she did safe just in case she tries anything. Honestly, for my first real relationship it was roller coaster. 4 months later, 4 days before Christmas, I lost my job, and my house, and moved back into my mother's. Few years later and I'm back on my feet, with a new job, looking for a new house, and got back into my karate, which I'm in a kata squad now, and back in touch with lots of friends. The next story is titled, When Cheating is Not Cheating. I wanted to post my story here, because this sub is filled with poor souls who have experienced the worst of the worst of the worst. I was one of you once. I walked in on my first ex balls deep in another woman on my bed once. But this cheating story I want to share is different. I want to give the other end of the cheating spectrum, and why you're always valid for leaving over any level of infidelity. I'm 2 for 2 on cheating husbands, but this time, the pain is in my hands and on my terms. My ex was raised by a single mom. His dad left his mother with 3 young boys to pursue a younger woman and new family, and my ex always said he would never cheat because of how it destroyed his mother. I believed him. When we first met, he confessed he's been sexually active with over 500 women. I believed him. But this was a red flag to me. When I asked, why me out of 500? He always told me I'm marriage material, mother material, that I love him for him, unlike those other women who only cared about dick and money. I shouldn't have quieted that place in my mind that said red flag, but I did. But aside from that, he was perfect. Until he wasn't. I found flirty messages on his phone to 4 different girls. The girls weren't even flirting back, just being friendly, but his messages made him seem like a single man out to get laid. No insinuations of an affair were made, and I highly doubt he physically cheated, but the act of seeking out other women for romance? I couldn't suffer it. I confronted him calmly and ended it right there. In his defense, he's playing the role of the perfect, remorseful gentleman. He hasn't blamed me, lied, gaslighted, or diminished my feelings. He immediately fessed up to the flirting and did everything right. He told me there is just too much temptation out there and he was only seeking validation due to low self-esteem, and it isn't my fault. But it isn't enough. And that's okay. He told me, I'll spend the rest of my life proving myself to you. You're perfect and I'll never stop working to deserve you. I'll go to therapy. I'll give you my phone. I'll delete social media, etc. But what about me? What about my life with you? Am I to spend the only life I've got with a man I'll never trust? If you have to spend a lifetime trusting someone, what is the point? The foundation is shattered. And if I am so perfect, then why wasn't I enough in the first place for you? I won't be with a man who has to completely delete social media just to behave. I won't build the foundation of a family with a man who is made of sand. And I'm not jealous. I don't care about him talking to women. But I care when he disrespects our relationship to seek out romantic extracurriculars. He would never tolerate me texting another man, "Hey there, sexy." So I left. I left my marriage over flirty Instagram messages, because I won't spend my life looking over my shoulder. I would rather be alone than miserable. And for people who still enjoy the high of flirting with strangers, just because you don't fuck doesn't mean it isn't cheating. Flirting busts holes in foundations, and those foundations are a hell of a lot harder to repair than they are to build. So do yourself a favor and don't get in a relationship if you still desire this kind of narcissistic validation. It's okay if you're single, but not if you're taken. And if you've ever been told that leaving over harmless texts is just throwing a relationship away, do yourself a favor as well and find someone worth building a future with. That's all. And to my ex-husband, one day when your beautiful blue eyes are covered in cataracts, and your muscles turn to flab, and your thick dark hair starts to thin and fall out, I hope you're happy. Because the high of sexting pretty girls and having them respond will fade quickly. One day, if you don't change, you're going to look around and find an empty household. Money, attractiveness, material possessions. It never mattered love. I hope you learn that lesson before it's too late. I would have been there, and I think you know it. But I will never be a doormat. Best of luck in your Tinder endeavors. I am many things, but I am not one of 500. This is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed the relationship stories. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video and write a comment. I really appreciate your support and it helps my channel so much. Thank you.